The movie kicks off in Russia, where a family of 3 is chilling by the river. The youngest, Sergei Alyoshkov, is bragging to his big brother and mom about climbing a tree. Suddenly, German fighter jets roar overhead. Mom tells the kids to hide in the bushes, but 6-year-old Sergei, trying to act tough, uses his slingshot to take a shot at the jets. Miraculously, he hits one and it explodes. But when he looks around, his family is gone. Sergei wakes up from this nightmare, scared, and calls for his mom. Just then, there's a knock at the door. Thinking it's his mom, he rushes over, but it's a panicked neighbor woman. She thanks God that Sergei is alive and then breaks the terrible news. His mom and brother are dead. Sergei, confused and in denial, wants to stay and wait for his mom. The woman urgently tells him the Germans have attacked and he needs to run. As soldiers approach the house, the woman helps Sergei escape through the window, but she's shot before she can join him. Now Sergei is alone, with no family or friends. Running away, he sees his neighborhood burning behind him. He calls out for his mom but gets no answer and keeps running. Eventually, he finds himself in the middle of a forest. Lost and scared, he calls for his mom to come get him. He spends the night in the jungle. The next morning, he drinks from a river when enemy soldiers start coming his way. Sergei, knowing the soldiers are dangerous, quickly hides among the tree roots. He's startled when a snake slithers nearby but stays silent, more afraid of the soldiers than the snake. After the soldiers eat by the river and leave, Sergei sneaks out and eats their leftover food. By the end of the day, Sergei is exhausted. He hasn't had a proper meal in 2 days and has been wandering aimlessly. He stumbles and falls but keeps going. On his way, he finds wild berries and eats them hungrily. Suddenly, an explosion goes off behind him, making him dizzy. He starts to hallucinate, thinking someone is coming after him. Despite his condition, he bravely claims he has a rifle and isn't scared. He limps forward but eventually collapses. While he's unconscious, 2 soldiers find him. The scene shifts to a Russian army base where Commander Kuznetsov waits for his patrol. The soldiers arrive with the injured and weak Sergei. When the soldiers assure him they're friendly, Sergei opens up and introduces himself. The soldiers laugh as the kid shakes hands with the commander, suggesting he introduce himself too. The soldiers feel affectionate towards Sergei and gather around him. They give him water and food. Even the usually stern commander shows care for the boy. A nurse named Katya dresses Sergei's wounds and is charmed by his personality. Sergei asks her to draw a tank on his bandages because he wants to be a soldier when he grows up. Even the injured soldiers talk to Sergei and feel uplifted. Sergei is fascinated by the commander's gun and his badge. The commander answers all of Sergei's questions and even lets him play with his unloaded pistol. Sergei proudly shows the tank drawing on his stomach and boasts about being a soldier. The boy heals quickly. Nurse Katya asks the commander if Sergei can stay with the battalion, but he refuses, saying it's too dangerous and plans to send Sergei to an orphanage. The soldiers spend all their free time with Sergei. He gets many visitors throughout the day, bringing him food from their families and letting him play with their binoculars. One day, a soldier approaches the commander, asking him to let Sergei stay. The soldiers have grown attached to the boy and see him as one of their own. His presence lightens the heavy mood of war. However, the commander insists on sending Sergei to the orphanage for his safety. The next day, the enemies attack, injuring many soldiers. A vehicle arrives to take Sergei to the orphanage. The commander breaks the news to Sergei and gives him a wooden honorary pistol as a gift. Sergei hugs him tightly, expressing his fear for the commander's safety. Touched by the boy's concern, the commander changes his mind and decides to let Sergei stay with the soldiers as his son. That night, the soldiers excitedly search for little soldier clothes for Sergei. They are thrilled to have him stay. The commander wakes Sergei up and gives him the new clothes. Sergei puts them on and runs around, looking like a real soldier. The others start calling him their little soldier boy. As Sergei runs around, the Germans launch an air attack on the battalion. The soldiers quickly move Sergei to a safe place and fight back. The number of injured soldiers increases rapidly. Wanting to help, Sergei brings water to the thirsty soldiers. One soldier, who has bandages over his eyes, asks Sergei to read a letter from his family. Sergei wants to help but doesn't know how to read, so he makes up a story, saying the soldier's cow is safe back home. When the soldier says he doesn't have a cow, the others laugh and tell him to play along. Sergei continues making up stories for the letters, cheering everyone up. In another scene, Katya and the commander talk, clearly attracted to each other but too shy to admit it. Later, Sergei tells the commander that he has an important role in the battalion and introduces himself as an orderly. He then sees a soldier's station destroyed in the attack. The commander teaches him to take off his hat to pay respect to the fallen soldier. The next day, Sergei insists on getting a mission and is tasked with distributing letters among the soldiers. He does this efficiently and even gets the soldiers to dance for him. One day, Sergei ventures a bit away from the base with his binoculars. While playing, he notices movement inside a haystack and rushes back to inform the soldiers. Skeptical but trusting Sergei, they investigate and discover 2 German spies hiding. The spies are arrested and Sergei is praised for his sharp observation. That night, the commander shows Sergei the adoption papers, making him officially Sergei's father. Knowing about the commander's feelings for Katya, Sergei takes him to confess to her as a way to repay his kindness. But when they see Katya talking to another man, they mistakenly think she's interested in someone else. Suddenly, the base is attacked by the Germans again. Sergei tries to help by bringing ammunition to the soldiers on the front line, but they tell him to go back to the shed because it's too dangerous. In the shed, Sergei sees the commander and others panicking because they've lost phone contact with the colonel. A soldier is sent to fix the broken wires, and Sergei follows him. When the soldier is fatally wounded, Sergei asks how to fix the wires and does it himself. The connection is restored, allowing more troops to be called in. The 6-year-old saves everyone's lives. Later by the river, the commander finally confesses his love to Katya and asks her to be Sergei's mother. Katya is thrilled, but before she can respond, a soldier brings a letter saying they've been ordered to move to a new base. The next day, the soldiers leave with Sergei. On their way, they encounter a minefield that explodes, damaging some vehicles. The commander is injured, and the group's orderly, who's close to Sergei, dies. Sergei cries and hugs the commander. They carry the injured and continue their journey to the new base. When they finally reach the new base, they meet the commander's leader, the general. Impressed by Sergei's bravery, the general congratulates the commander for having such a smart kid. The next day, their division is awarded a guard's banner, and Sergei also receives a badge from the general. He promises to save his country. One night, their base is attacked, and the commander gets trapped under the rubble. Sergei, desperate to save his father, calls for help. The other soldiers manage to rescue the commander. The next day, Sergei visits the injured commander, his own hands hurt from the rescue effort. Sergei has become an inseparable part of the team, moving with them wherever they go. The movie ends with the regiment moving to another base. A voiceover narrates that Sergei even took part in the Battle of Stalingrad and reached Poland with the soldiers. He is now known as the world's youngest soldier, and his legendary story of bravery is shared around the world.